I thought moving back to my hometown would be a fresh start. I had just gotten a promotion and needed a quiet place to work. My new house was a simple two-story from the 90s, surrounded by big oak trees and an overgrown garden. The air felt crisp in October, and memories from childhood popped into my head now and then. Maybe that's why I never really forgot about this place. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. I unpacked and settled in. By night, I worked on my designs, feeling excited about my new life. But then, on my first night, I heard it. A soft tapping at my bedroom window. I thought it was just branches moving in the wind until I glanced out. There were no trees near my window. A shiver ran down my spine. All I saw was the streetlight, casting strange, flickering shadows. I told myself it was nothing. I went to bed, hoping I was just imagining things. But the tapping came back that night. I also heard a strange, rhythmic thumping from the attic. My heart raced as I listened, wondering if I was losing my mind. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it couldn't be real. But then I discovered something else. One evening, I was sitting in the living room when I noticed odd drawings on the wall. They looked like my house but with dark, shadowy figures standing too close behind me. I looked around, but nobody was there. Why were they there? Was I just seeing things? The days passed, but the weirdness didn't stop. One night, while I was turning off the last light, I heard a whisper. My blood ran cold. I froze, straining to hear again. Then I heard it. Megan. Only one person called me that, and it was never in a whisper like that. My heart pounded in my chest. Was it a trick of my mind? Or was something in my house? I kept repeating that it was just stress. But the more I stayed in my house, the more I felt something dark in the corner of my mind. I wanted to pull the covers over my head and hide. But the next night, I heard my name again, clearer this time. Megan. I turned around quickly, but there was no one there. The fear tightened around me. I started questioning everything around me. The whispers, the drawings, it all felt chilling. I wanted to leave, but I was also drawn to figure it out. It was as though the house needed me to listen. I was scared and confused. Each night, when the sun set, I felt the presence creeping closer. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling and listening for the tapping. I could hear my own heart racing. I felt like I was stuck in a nightmare with no way out. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard it again. A whisper. Megan. I turned my head slowly, hoping for a different view, but still, nobody was there. I gripped my blanket, unsure of how to face the night ahead. I woke the next morning feeling exhausted. Sleep had slipped through my fingers, replaced by fear and uncertainty. I needed answers. I decided to visit the local library. Maybe there was something in the old town records that could explain the weirdness surrounding my house. The library was small but had a musty charm. Rows of dusty shelves leaned against yellowed walls. I found a table in a quiet corner and started flipping through old newspapers. Most of it was mundane, local gossip and forgotten events, until I stumbled upon an article from the 90s. It talked about a family that had lived in my house years ago. They had left suddenly, with an ominous note left behind. Strange noises and visions, it said. I felt a chill run over me. I scanned the rest of the article, looking for names and details, but it was vague. Just a family that had vanished without a trace. I pushed the newspaper aside, trying to process what I'd read. As I was about to leave, I saw a figure in the corner of my eye. An elderly woman, sitting alone, watching me with an unnatural intensity. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. I couldn't shake the feeling she knew something. Maybe she did. I hesitated before approaching her. Excuse me, do you know anything about the family that lived in the old house on Maple Street? Her eyes widened, and her fingers twitched nervously. You don't want to know, dear. That was unsettling. I pressed on, asking if she had heard about the noises. It's not the house. It's what has been left behind, she replied softly, her voice almost a whisper. Left behind? I asked, my heart racing. She nodded, glancing around as if to be sure no one was listening. Some things in this world shouldn't be disturbed. Trust me. I left the library even more confused than I had entered. As I drove back home, the air felt heavy. I parked the car and stepped inside, feeling the walls close in on me. A part of me wanted to flee, but another part was still drawn to the mystery. That night, as I prepared to go to bed, I heard it again. A tapping, slow and deliberate. It was coming from the attic. I stood still, my heart pounding. I thought about the woman's warning. Should I ignore it? Or was I supposed to investigate? I grabbed a flashlight and made my way to the attic door. The tapping had stopped. I hesitated. What if I found something I wasn't prepared for? But the need to know overwhelmed me. I pushed open the attic door, the hinges creaking in protest. Darkness loomed ahead, and I switched on the flashlight. The thin beam cut through the gloom, bouncing off old boxes and cobwebs. The air was stale, and as I walked in, I felt a presence. Then everything went cold. A shadow darted past the light. I gasped, shining the beam in its direction, but there was nothing there. I wasn't alone. Suddenly, I heard my name again, the whisper echoing in the stillness. Megan. Panic surged as I turned to leave. But just before I turned back to the stairs, I spotted something on the floor. A small, crumpled note, half hidden beneath a dusty old newspaper. My heart raced. I reached down, my fingers trembling as I unfolded it. The words were smeared, but I could make out the essence of a warning: they are here. Don't trust the darkness. The hairs on my neck stood up. I was not alone in the house, and whatever was with me didn't want me to know. Now I had two choices: leave for good or face what was lurking in the shadows. I knew one thing: I had to find out what happened to that family before it happened to me. The next day, the sun broke through the clouds, but it felt more like an illusion than a reprieve. I couldn't shake off the chill from the attic or the warning note. As I made my morning coffee, I glanced around my empty kitchen, anxiety tightening my chest. My life had felt mundane until it had suddenly morphed into a horror story I wasn't sure I was ready to live. Determined to find out more, I decided to return to the library. I needed to dig deeper into the town's history, to understand what had happened to that family. Maybe there were more articles, more clues hidden in the stacks. When I arrived, the elderly woman was gone, and the library felt eerily quiet. I sat at the same table, but this time I was on a mission. I rummaged through local records, searching for anything that might connect to the family's disappearance. Hours passed, and just as I was about to give up, I discovered a musty ledger tucked far back on a shelf. It was a record of town permits, including one for renovations on my house about the same time the family fled. My heart raced as I read the details. The renovations had involved digging in the basement. Cemetery artifacts were mentioned. I felt my stomach turn. What kind of artifacts? And why hadn't I noticed anything? Just then, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I turned my head sharply, but there was nothing. Shaking off the paranoia, I took the ledger home with me. It felt heavy in my bag as I walked back to the house, filled with burdens I didn't understand. That night, I spread the ledger on my living room table and began to take notes. I was getting so deep into history that I forgot about the present. The tapping returned, steady and rhythmic, that sinister reminder of whatever haunted me. I barely flinched this time, consumed by my search for answers. Then I heard a knock, louder and sharper than the tapping. I jumped, the sound echoing through the quiet house. Was someone at the door? I thought. I crept toward the front entrance, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I opened the door slowly, peering into the darkness outside. No one. Just the wind rustling the leaves. I sighed and closed the door, returning to my table. The knocking came again, though, this time from underneath me. My breath hitched. I looked toward the floor, and suddenly the house felt alive, the very structure groaning under the weight of secrets. My throat tightened as I crouched next to the floorboards beneath the table. I rapped my knuckles lightly, and to my shock, it sounded hollow. Curiosity mixed with fear. I couldn't leave that alone. Gritting my teeth, I scraped at the edges of the floor with a screwdriver I had nearby. With each slice, splinters flew, but I didn't stop. Finally, I pried away a board, and my heart dropped. Scattered beneath was not just dust and dirt, but a small wooden box, intricately carved. My breath quickened, but I forced my hands to reach for it. It was locked. And that's when I heard the creaking of footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate. I spun around, heart in my throat. The room was empty, yet the atmosphere crackled with something dark. I thought about the woman at the library and her warning. Someone or something didn't want me to find out what lay inside that box. I could feel it. And there was no way I was leaving now. I knelt on the cold wooden floor, my heart racing as I stared at the locked box. The air felt thick and electric, and the hair on my arms stood on end. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I clenched my jaw and turned back to the box. I needed to know what was inside. As I examined it, my fingers grazed the carvings. Intricate swirls and symbols danced across its surface. I remembered the librarian mentioning something about the town's superstitions. Did they connect to this box? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I couldn't lose focus now. Above me, a floorboard creaked. I froze, glancing up again. Would I see someone in the doorframe? But there was only darkness. I swallowed hard. I was alone, I told myself. Just me and my curiosity. Turning back to the box, I felt a sharp sting on my palm. I pulled back my hand and saw a thin line of red. A splinter from the damaged floorboard. I pressed it against my lips, and this small act of pain grounded me. I couldn't back down now. I made my way to the staircase, each step creaking like a warning. I fished out a hammer and chisel from the toolbox I had in the hallway. The thought of breaking the box was nerve-wracking, but I needed answers. Tension coiled in my stomach as I pondered how to proceed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me, and I whirled around, nearly losing my balance. My heart raced again, thrumming loudly in my ears. Nothing was there. I took a deep breath to steady myself, forcing my legs to remain steady. The house felt like it was shifting, and I was a mere trespasser in its secrets. I returned to the box, heart still thudding. As I lifted the hammer, the wind outside picked up, howling against the windows. It sounded almost human, a mournful call echoing through the night. The noise sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't let fear take over. I struck the box with the hammer, and it jolted under the impact. The wood cracked but didn't break. As I prepared for my next strike, a whisper drifted through the air, soft and unintelligible. Please. It was faint, like a long-forgotten memory begging to be heard. I froze, struck by a mix of fear and confusion. Was I losing my mind? Or had I truly just heard something? I paused, staring at the box. My impulse fought against the feeling of something unseen gathering around me. I shook my head and brought the hammer down one more time. The sound was sharper this time, and the lid finally splintered, giving way. With my heart in my throat, I lifted the lid. It creaked open, revealing the contents within. A collection of objects lay inside, covered in grime. My pulse quickened as I grasped a small, rusted key, but it wasn't just that. A folded piece of faded paper lay underneath. My hands trembled as I reached for it, but just as my fingers brushed against it, the room went cold. A shadow moved behind me, and I instinctively turned. Someone was there. I could feel their presence, chilling and heavy. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone anymore. I spun around, adrenaline coursing through me. My eyes darted to the dark corner of the room, but there was nothing there. Just the shadows playing tricks on my mind. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of fear clouding my thoughts. Maybe it was just my imagination, but the lingering chill told me otherwise. I focused on the box again, but the comforting weight of the key and the paper now felt like a heavy burden. I quickly pulled the folded paper out and opened it. The writing was faded, almost impossible to read, but I could make out a name, Elena. "Who were you?" I whispered to the empty space around me. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and I felt another shiver race down my spine. The ambience of the house changed, as if something had shifted, something ancient stirring beneath its surface. I turned back to the box, my breath quickening again. Was Elena connected to this place? The key felt solid in my palm. I needed to know what it unlocked. Without thinking, I started searching the nearest door, my heart hammering as I placed the key into the lock of the closet down the hall. I hesitated just before I turned the key. If something was inside, I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But curiosity propelled me forward. I turned it slowly, a sharp click echoing through the stillness. I pulled the door open and was met with an overwhelming smell of dust and mildew. Old clothes hung limply on hangers, and in the corner sat a small chest, similar in style to the box but larger and much more ornate. As I stepped closer, the air thickened, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. The chest was tightly shut, adorned with carvings that mirrored those from the box. I reached out, hesitation creeping in again. Would I find more secrets, or something sinister? I grasped the lid and lifted it, and the creaking sound resonated throughout the darkened hallway. Inside was a collection of old photographs, their edges yellowed and curled images of people I didn't recognize. I picked one up, and it felt cool against my fingers. A lady with dark hair stared back at me, her expression serious, almost mournful. I flipped it over and found an inscription, "To Elena, forever in our hearts." A chill washed over me. I was being drawn in deeper. Who was this Elena? Why were these photographs hidden away? I suddenly felt the air shift again, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then, a whisper echoed in my ear, clear as day. "Find me." I whipped around, but the hallway was empty. My pulse raced. I couldn't ignore it, whatever I was uncovering was more than just a box and a chest. This was something personal, something rooted in pain and sorrow. I needed to know. My mind raced with thoughts as I grasped the key tightly, glancing back at the box. The key could unlock more than just doors, it might unlock the truth behind these memories. I took a shaky breath, determination igniting within me. I would find Elena. But deep down, a dread loomed over me. What if I wished I hadn't? I pulled back from the chest, the photographs still clutched in my hand. The weight of them felt heavy, like secrets begging to be released. I needed answers, but the house seemed to breathe around me, the walls closing in with every breath. My mind swam with questions. Who was Elena? What happened to her? I placed the photos down gently, forcing myself to regain focus. The key gleamed in my palm. Maybe it unlocked another memory, another piece of the puzzle. I had to look for more locked doors. The dread inside me was a whisper, urging me to stop, but my curiosity was louder. I stepped out of the closet and down the creaking hallway. Every footfall felt like a challenge, the floorboards protesting under my weight. I made my way to a door at the end of the hall, one that looked heavier, more worn than the others. It was bold in its stillness, almost daring me to approach. I hesitated, the key trembling in my grasp. Would it even fit? I inserted it slowly. It slid in with surprising ease and turned effortlessly. The sound of the lock clicking echoed in the silence. I took a breath, pushed the door, and stepped into darkness. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust. A musty smell assaulted my senses as I fumbled for the light switch. Flicking it on revealed a small, dim room filled with dusty furniture and sheets draped over old items. In the corner, a mirror caught my eye, its glass fogged and tarnished. Suddenly, I felt a jolt of electricity course through me. I was drawn to it. The mirror felt different. I reached out to touch the surface, and a cold rush flooded my fingertips. My reflection wavered. I gasped, jerking back. In the glass, I saw not just myself but a shadowy figure standing behind me. I spun around, dread flooding my veins. The room was empty, but the mirror showed everything still, as if waiting. I turned back, heart racing. Something was in that mirror, something linked to the house and to Elena. I had to find out more. I stepped closer again, forcing myself to look. Might as well, I said to myself, my voice sounding hollow in the stillness. I leaned into the mirror, straining to see any detail of the figure. Then, in the corner of my vision, movement caught my attention. The reflection shifted, whispering promises of truth, just out of reach. When I saw it, I breathed, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. A glimmering object hung around the figure's neck, a key. A key that looked identical to the one I held. My heart dropped. Fighting both fear and curiosity, I reached for the mirror, feeling the cold air around me grow even colder. "What are you?" I whispered. But the only reply was silence, thick and oppressive. My fingers brushed the glass, and suddenly, the lights flickered. Everything felt alive, waking after years of slumber. Then everything went dark. The room plunged into a black void, leaving me alone with the echo of my own breath, and the chilling realization that I wasn't the only one searching for answers in this house. I jolted awake, my heart racing. Darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. I sat up, breath coming in quick gasps. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the distant creaking of the house. My hands instinctively searched for my phone on the floor. As the glow illuminated the room, I felt both relieved and unsettled. The light revealed the small room filled with dusty furniture, just like before. The mirror seemed to gleam tauntingly in the corner. I hesitated, the urge to approach it warring with the instinct to flee. I remembered the figure, the key. There was something in the air, a tension that felt alive. Maybe I could discover more if I looked again. I stood slowly, my knees shaky. Each step toward the mirror felt like an eternity. I was scared but drawn in, like a moth to a flame. My reflection stared back, but I sensed something else lurking behind. I reached out again, half expecting the chill of the glass to shock me. Instead, warmth pulsed through my fingertips as I made contact. "Show me," I whispered, not knowing if I spoke to the mirror or the shadow. My breath fogged the surface momentarily. I leaned in closer, squinting to see any trace of the figure. The room was still. Then, suddenly, a raindrop pattered against the window, breaking the tension. The sound echoed like a heartbeat in the silence. I turned my head to glance outside. The storm clouds had rolled in, darkening the already dim space. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, momentarily revealing the shadow once more, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. I took a step back, heart pounding. My thoughts raced. Was the figure tied to the storm? To Elena? As I wrestled with the questions that swirled in my head, I heard another noise, a whisper. It was faint but distinct, coming from somewhere deep within the house. "Elena," it called, echoing off the walls. "Hello." My voice wobbled as I called out, even though I was alone. There was no reply, just the steady rhythm of the rain and wind. But my instincts screamed that I was not alone. I turned back to the mirror, examining it desperately. Seeing only my own wide-eyed expression reflecting back at me. Then I felt it, a cold breeze swirling around me, sending shivers down my spine. The light flickered back to life, casting long shadows across the room. I could have sworn I saw the figure's outline again, clear and looming, this time in a different corner. It felt like a warning, a presence urging me to uncover whatever was hidden. I grasped the key tightly in my hand. "What do you want?" I shouted, feeling the weight of the moment heavy upon me. But the answer didn't come. Instead, the mirror warped slightly, revealing glimpses of something bright and colorful, a room I didn't recognize. That's when I noticed. Something else was different. A small drawer beneath the mirror was now slightly ajar. It hadn't been there before, or had it? I felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. I could either stay and face whatever was happening or find out what lay within that drawer. I took a deep breath, heart pounding, and leaned down to peek inside. Then, just as I grasped the handle, a thunderous crash echoed through the house. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. Someone was in the house. I held my breath, straining to hear any sound that might follow the crash. My heart thudded loudly against my chest, drowning out the rain pounding against the roof. Was it just the wind? Could it just be my mind playing tricks? I glanced toward the mirror, feeling a mix of dread and urgency. The drawer beneath the mirror seemed to glimmer, beckoning me. I had to decide. I couldn't stay here, not knowing who or what was lurking nearby. As I turned back, a creak echoed from the hallway outside my room. I felt frozen in place. Was it footsteps? "Hello?" I called out again, my voice barely a whisper. A part of me expected an answer. A response from someone, anyone. I took a step back from the mirror, my instincts kicking in. Enough with this. I had to investigate. I couldn't take the key with me, I was scared it would clutter my thoughts. I left it on the dresser and made for the door. I cracked it open cautiously, allowing my eyes to adjust to the dim light of the hallway. The sound of rain outside felt sinister now, like a desperate warning. The house stood silent, but I felt an unseen tension hanging in the air. I started creeping down the hallway, preparing for another noise. Another crash. Another whisper. I stepped lightly, careful to avoid the boards that might creak beneath me. Every second felt like an hour. I passed a room filled with toys I hadn't touched in ages. A tattered stuffed bear sat staring at the door like it knew something I didn't. I felt an urge to look, but the echo of that crash pulled me further down the hall. I needed to find out what was going on. As I approached the staircase, the sound came again, a loud thump from below. My breath hitched. What if it was Elena? What if she was hurt? I fought the urge to turn back. I couldn't go back. I needed answers. Taking a deep breath, I descended the stairs. The darkness seemed to swallow me, but I couldn't stop now. The air grew colder, thick with apprehension. I reached the landing and peered into the living room, but nothing seemed out of place. Just shadows dancing in the flickering light of the dying bulbs. Then I noticed something. It wasn't just an echo. A figure was moving in the corner, an indistinct shape. My pulse quickened. "Who's there?" I called, my voice far steadier than I felt. The shape stopped. My heart raced as I strained to make out any detail. The figure flickered in and out, like a faulty image on a television screen. I felt a chill inching down my spine. Suddenly, I remembered the drawer in the mirror room. What if there was something in that drawer connected to whatever was happening here? Just as that thought hit me, the figure lunged forward. Shock coursed through me, and I dashed back up the stairs, my legs pumping like a frantic race against time. I had to get back to the drawer. I had to know what it held. I burst into the mirror room, slamming the door behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, and forced myself to approach the open drawer once again. Whatever it was, whatever secret lay within, I couldn't let fear dictate my actions anymore. I knelt, hands trembling as I pulled it wide open. That's when I saw it, something shimmering at the bottom of the drawer, pulsing gently, like a heartbeat. I reached into the drawer, my fingers brushing against the cool surface of the shimmering object. The glow was soft but alluring, giving off a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos swirling in my mind. Should I touch it? What if it burned or shocked me? But a deeper part of me felt compelled. I grasped the object, and it felt heavier than expected. As I pulled it out, a strange whirlwind of emotions lit up inside me: fear, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite place. It was an antique locket, its surface smooth and worn. Intricate engravings spiraled around it, catching the light just enough to make it glint. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I recognized it from somewhere. Before I could think any further, a sudden crash echoed through the house, this time much closer. I dropped the locket back into the drawer as if it had burned me. My heart raced again as everything inside me screamed to not stay here, but I was rooted in place. Who or what was making these noises? Please, just leave me alone. I yelled into the darkness, hoping to instill some kind of fear into whatever was lurking around. Silence met my plea, so I took another deep breath and forced myself to look around. That's when I noticed the mirror. It was an old, ornate thing, slightly ajar, as though something had nudged it. The reflection seemed foggy, almost warped. I stepped closer, feeling drawn to it. I squinted, trying to see whatever was reflected. And then I saw something. Someone standing behind me in the mirror. I whipped around, heart pounding in my throat. No one was there. Just empty space where the locket had been moments ago. I turned back to the mirror, breathless. In it, the figure was still there, clearer now, a silhouette of a girl. Her eyes seemed sad, maybe even pleading. I had to act. The locket held a connection. Whatever ghostly presence this was, it stared back at me with an intensity that felt desperate. I needed to understand. As I reached towards the drawer again, fear gripped me. Were the noises linked to the locket, or was it something else? I grabbed the locket, the sensation burning into my skin, and turned it over. A small hinge gave way, and the front popped open, revealing a picture inside. It was an old photograph, faded but still somewhat recognizable. My breath caught in my throat. It was a girl. A girl who looked exactly like the figure in the mirror. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered above me, plunging the room into darkness. My heart raced, and I stumbled back, trapping myself against the dresser. I heard it again, the faint sound of footsteps approaching from the hallway. The tap of soles against the wooden floor sent chills down my spine. I pressed myself against the wall, willing myself to disappear. Who was coming? Did they want the locket? Or worse? I felt the air grow heavy and charged for a confrontation. I peeked out into the darkened hallway, dread creeping in. Show yourself. I called, trying to sound brave, even as my voice shook. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Whatever had been unleashed was on its way back, and it wouldn't be long before I confronted the truth about that locket. I waited, every second stretching into eternity. Fear coiled tightly within my stomach as I listened to the footsteps approach. Each beat of my heart echoed in the silence, drowning out the sound of the rain outside. Just as the shadow of a figure fell across the threshold, I mustered the courage to step forward. "Who is there?" I shouted, my voice shaking with a mixture of bravado and terror. I squinted, trying to make out the details of the shadow at the door. And then, nothing. The figure seemed to vanish, leaving only the heavy air of uncertainty behind. My heart thundered. I was losing grip on reality, but I had to keep moving forward. I thought of the locket, the girl in the mirror, and an urgency washed over me. Whatever was happening, I might find my answers if I could discover the truth about Elena. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to break through my fear. I slipped past the mirror, back into the darkened hallway. The shadows twisted around me like fingers reaching out, and with each step, the heaviness in the air grew more pronounced. No more hesitation, this was my moment. I headed toward the staircase, the darkness swirling around me. I had to dig deeper into the heart of whatever lay beneath this house. The air thickened around me as if warning me to turn back, but there was a determination growing inside. I had come too far to retreat now. As I descended the stairs, I noticed a flickering light at the end of the hall. I moved cautiously, the glow cast much brighter than before. Each step felt like a step into uncharted territory. When I reached the last step, I paused. The light was coming from the living room, but it flickered erratically, almost like a candle caught in a draft. "Who is there?" I called again, testy and breathless, but the only response was the soft suspension of night. I stepped into the light and looked around. The flickering illumination came from the fireplace. An old candle had been lit, casting dancing shadows around the room. And there, in the middle of it all, lay the locket on the coffee table, gleaming softly in the firelight. Part of me wanted to back away, wanted to leave the locket behind, but another part insisted I keep moving. I approached it slowly, hands trembling as I picked it up. Suddenly, those whispers returned. They were muffled yet urgent. "Find me. Remember." The moment I held the locket in my hand, the warmth spilled through me, clearer than before. I needed to understand this connection. I flipped the locket open yet again, hoping for a revelation. This time, the picture inside glowed with vibrancy. In the image, the girl smiled gently, in eerie contrast to the despair that enveloped the spaces around me. "Elena," I whispered, breath hitching in my chest. I could feel her presence enveloping me now, as if she was yearning to convey something she hadn't managed to say in life. As I stared into her eyes, I heard it again, clearer this time. "Remember me." And then, everything erupted into chaos. Shadows rushed toward me from every direction, swirling around the room. I felt the locket wrench itself from my fingers, slipping back onto the table. Movement rushed through the air like a storm. Whispers turned into cries, echoing in the dim light. "Elena," they screamed, and it felt as though the old house was shaking, desperately trying to release its secrets. Panic surged through my veins as I grasped the edges of the table, fighting off the overwhelming force pulling me back. I thought of the girl in the mirror. I had to confront whatever she wanted me to find. I focused on the locket, the pictures, the shadows. They were all connected, begging for me to look deeper. Then the shadows came together before me, morphing into the outline of Elena once more, her face gentle yet lined with overwhelming sadness. She reached out, as if asking me to join her. I could feel the intensity of her emotions wrapping around my heart: fear, regret, sorrow. "What do you want?" I shouted desperately, conflict waging within me. "Save me," she whispered, her gaze imploring. "Find the key, the real key." Suddenly, as if struck by lightning, clarity washed over me. This wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was about accepting that something had gone wrong in a place that had been marked by grief. "Elena. I need to know how." I cried, heart racing in response to the urgency of the moment. With that, I felt something release inside me. The chaos around me began to still, the shadows retracting, shrinking back into the corners of the room. The candle flickered smoother, the atmosphere shifted from panic to tranquility. I stood still, breath ragged, acclimating to the haunting stillness. And then poof! The lights returned, illuminating the room once more. I turned, and Elena was gone. But I felt her presence linger as a soft warmth enveloped me. The locket sat on the table, but something changed. Its surface shimmered, revealing a hidden compartment. With trembling hands, I grasped the locket again, opened it with newfound urgency, and pressed carefully along the hidden seam. With a slight click, the compartment opened, revealing a crumpled piece of paper inside, worn with age but still legible. I unfolded it slowly, my heart pounding with anticipation. The words sent chills down my spine: "The past holds the key. Trust it, and you will be free." I gasped, my mind racing with uncertainty. What did it mean? What key? Could the answer truly lie in my understanding of what happened here? Looking around the room, I realized that some questions would never truly be answered. I had survived, yes, but the deepest mysteries of this house and the fate of Elena would always linger just out of reach, drifting like the flickering candlelight in the dark. I left the room quietly, a heaviness still resting within me. This would not be over, there would be no closure tonight. Yet somehow believing that I had touched something meaningful gave me the strength to face the uncertainty. Stepping outside into the cool night, lingering thoughts twisted in my mind. I might have escaped the darkness in this house, but the pull of its mysteries would always haunt me. And deep down, I knew Elena's story was far from complete.